Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all the praises, glory, and honor unto Yahawah, BaHa, YAHAWASHI, BaHa, RAWCHAA. Double honors to the elder apostles of the great millstone who rule well. Peace, blessings, and salutations unto the hopeful elect tabernacle of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Now, there's a scripture in Ecclesiastes that says, "The words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool will swallow up himself." This snake right here, every time he slithers, he always chokes himself. So, we just dealt with the issue of, going into the Edomites, whether they're done away with or not. He claims that the Herodians were the last family line of Edomites that were left, and then they just so happened to vanish and disappear. Therefore, there's no more distinct ethnic Edomites, in which all the brothers, the men of the Lord, the prophets, the apostles all covered that. You should already know. Now, here's another example of how unlearned this guy truly is. And like the elder apostles are saying, this guy is very easy. Like, if you ain't got no material, nothing that's coming to your mind on, as far as what lesson you want to do, he provides all the material you need for a lesson. It's too easy. All right, it's like playing the game on easy mode. You playing the game and it's so damn easy. You just going from level to level. You defeating boss after boss after boss to the point where you could just do a speed run. Well, that's how easy vocab is. He's very easy. And if you're learned, if you study these scriptures and the spirit is working with you, you can see how easy he is. All right. So anyway, and what shows that this guy also, he's we refer to in the scriptures as the deaf adder that stoppeth her ear, was so in the Psalms, the 58th chapter. No matter how many times we make our response videos and actually break down the scriptures the right way after he breaks it down wrong, and he's subscribed to all of our videos, so he's aware of the teachings, the various video responses to his lectures. It doesn't even matter. He's still gonna harden his ears and act like we're not actually breaking it down the right way. He's going to continue to deceive the people that's listening to him, and that's the Lord set him up in that role. That's his purpose. The Lord said the deceived and the deceivers are his. All right. We dealt with this topic months ago, and I believe he was I think he approached some Israelite on the street, some brother, and this topic came up, and we dealt with it then. And then we can't forget that just 3 weeks ago a brother caught this guy admitting that the Greeks in the New Testament were Israelites. It came out of his mouth that then you had Jews who were living as the Greeks, who were uncircumcised, who believed they could eat all the pork. He said that. So he admitted that the Greeks in the New Testament were Israelites. So that's why I had to start the lesson by quoting that in Ecclesiastes. I believe it's the 10th chapter. This fool keeps swallowing up himself every time he speaks. And that should, that topic in itself proves that the Gentiles in the New Testament were Israelites. But he's going to continue to double down on his stance because, he's the wicked. Okay? So let's, I know the elder apostles already did responses. This elder here. Karata Zaba, the elder in Baltimore, did his lesson. But I want to actually respond to a passage, all right, which he's taken out of context, and actually go into how when Paul says that, remember that you and you being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. That's only talking about Israelites who were called into the church after living like the Gentiles. They were living in the manner of the heathen. All right, they were being called out of darkness into the light. That's all he was basically saying. But let's listen to Vocab, aka Haman.
Therefore, remember that one time you Gentiles, I'm establishing, this really means Gentiles here. Some Hebrew Israelites try to say a Gentile is a scattered Israelite in a Gentile state of mind, meaning an ethnic Hebrew that is just being called a Gentile. That way they can make the passage not apply to non-Israelites because they think they are one. Oh, yeah. But only when it's convenient, which we may be able to get to Romans passage. I have it on my list. I don't know if we're going to get to it. But the reason why I'm bringing you here is because what is the phrase? It's a prepositional phrase that is right after the word Gentiles here, ladies and gentlemen. What's it say? Boy, you're missing it. Yes, in the flesh. You see it? They're Gentiles in the flesh. Is this their state of mind? They're Gentiles in the flesh. Now, Hebrew Israelite, if you drag them here, they'll act like they like this passage, but they don't like it. Because when I bring it up, they have this little psychological trick. I'm so glad you wanted me to go there. This is what I always get. They do this. It's a psychological trick. And I'm not saying you should do this because it's a different situation. I'll say, really? Then why didn't you have it start here? Well, if you're so glad, why didn't you? I'm the one who brought the, they'll do this kind of thing. But it says Gentiles in the flesh. Some of them will say, yeah, that means they were uncircumcised. But right after it says called the uncircumcision. It's describing them as Gentiles, saying they're uncircumcised, but it says they're Gentiles in the flesh. That means they're Gentiles according to their nationality, their ethnicity. Gentile.
And that's where you're wrong. That does not mean that. Now, let's go to Ephesians 2 and 11. And I actually want to read it in the NLT so we can establish something right here. Ephesians 2 verse 11 in the NLT. Don't forget that you Gentiles used to be outsiders. You were called uncircumcised heathens by the Jews who were proud of their circumcision, even though it affected only their bodies and not their hearts. So what is he saying here? That there was a point where you were considered outsiders. Why? Because not only were you not born in Judea, because you were scattered among the heathen, but you lived as an outsider. Remember, going back to the laws, there were various laws that if you were to break, you were to be cut off from among the people. That soul shall be cut off from among thy people. So they had to live, they were considered as outsiders. All right. They being among the practicing Israelites, they would be considered profane because they were living like the heathen. And like you admitted that there were Jews who were living like the heathen. They were living like Greeks. And there was a point in time when they were actually forced to leave their laws and live after the manner of the heathen. How many times do we bring that out in the history in the book of Maccabees? How it was even unlawful to even confess that you were a Jew. And he always acts like he does not recognize that. But he knows that that's in the history. But he's the deaf adder that stoppeth our ear. He's got to just continuously put his poison out. All right. But what he's saying right here is no different than what he said to some of the other churches. Let's go to 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter. 1 Corinthians 12. And starting at verse 1, it says, Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I would not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were Gentiles, carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Now, how do you go from being a physical Gentile in the flesh to just magically becoming of the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, an Israelite? Question. So you can you can go from being a Gentile in the flesh to a literal seed of Israel. So you could just magically transform from a natural heathen Gentile in the flesh to an actual Israelite. See, this is what replacement theology would have you believe. That's a doctrine of the devil. But this right here is only saying what he said back in to the church of Ephesus. All right, that you were in time past Gentiles in the flesh, meaning you were moving as the Gentiles do in the flesh. All right, carried away unto dumb idols, even as you were led. What were they doing? They were worshiping idols. All right, whether it was Dionysus or Bacchus, Jupiter. All right, whatever the Greeks were worshiping. Now, let's go to another one, because you'll even hear this devil. He'll mock us when he'll say that, oh, the Israelites will say that there's talking about a Israelite in a Gentile state of mind. Well, do Apostle Paul ever mention being estranged in the mind in one of his epistles? Let's go to one. This is Galatians 1 verse not Galatians, Colossians 1 and verse 20. I'll start at 19. It says, For it pleased the Father that in him should all fullness dwell, and having made peace through the blood of his cross, by him to reconcile all things unto himself. By him, I say, whether they be things in earth or things in heaven. And you that were sometime alienated, all right, meaning you were on the outside, you were estranged and enemies in your mind. By what? By wicked works. Yet now have he reconciled. So these people at one point in time, they were alienated and they were enemies in their mind by wicked works, meaning they were doing abominable practices. They were basically committing the acts or the works of the flesh, in which that's something that the Gentiles do. Let's go from there. Let's go to Romans 13 and 12. And it says, The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and envying, but put ye on the Lord YAHAWASHI Mashiach, and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lust thereof. As long as you're doing these things, you're in the flesh, and that means that you're in darkness. Okay? You were in darkness. That's why it says to cast off the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Become a new creature. When you were that old person, that old creature, you were living after the manner of the Gentiles. So you were like Gentiles in the flesh. This is why the circumcision called them the uncircumcision. They called them Gentiles in the flesh because they were behaving in the manner of the Gentiles. I mean, it's very easy and plain to understand. All right. But the devil want to make it complicated. Real simple. Let's go from there to 1 Peter 4. Let's hear what Peter said. 1 Peter 4:1, it says, for as much then as a Mashiach, the anointed, have suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind. Right? For he has suffered in the flesh. He that has suffered in the flesh ceased from sin, that he should no longer live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lust of men, but to the will of the Most High. All right? Because there's a scripture that talks about, let me see if I can search it out. It talks about wrought the will of the Gentiles. So like, yeah, I'm tripping. It was right there. It was right there. I just had to keep reading. It says that he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh to the lust of men, but to the will of the Most High. For the time past of our life may suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles. And this is what the Gentiles do. When we walked in lasciviousness, all right, uncontrollable lust, decadence, all right, lust, excess of wine, all right, which is one of the things that I also just read in Romans 12, right, revelings, all right, partying till late night, heavy drinking, music playing, overindulging. Usually, in those settings, adultery happens. And in Rome, they was having orgies. All right, they was partying with temple harlots in the temple, and made the holy place abominable and desolate. It says banquetings and abominable idolatries. All right, this is what the Gentiles do. So our people were, when they was being called out of darkness, this is what they used to do. Let's go to the second chapter. Is 1 Peter 2 and 9. It says, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. And this don't go for all nations. The Israelites, they're going to be a nation of priests. Pursuant to Exodus 19:5-6. This is just reiterating that. This is just further establishing that the nation of Israel are going to be priests. So these will have to be Israelites that Peter is addressing. It says, an holy nation. Israel is a holy people, not the world. A peculiar people. Israel is that peculiar treasure. That you should shew forth the praise of him who called you out of darkness, right? When you walked when you wrought the will of the Gentiles, when you walked in lasciviousness, lust, excessive wine, revelings, banquetings, abominable idolatries, you were chambering, okay? You wasn't keeping a Sabbath day. You was eating swine. All right, it says that you should shew forth the praise of him who have called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. You was used to you was alienated and enemies in your mind, but now you being brought back to light, which in time past were not a people, but are now the people of the Most High, which have not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. And we already know this is um alluding to the prophecy in Hosea 1. All right, where it's and also Paul reiterated it in Romans the 9th chapter. All right, though Israel be as a sand of the sea that cannot be measured nor numbered, yet it will be said to them in a place where it was said unto ye, and to thee, you are not my people. There shall be said that you are the sons or the children of the living power. That refers to the nation of Israel. So yes, there was going to be a point in time where they were not a people. So yeah, they were Gentiles in the flesh because they were not living after the manner of the Lord's people, a people who was under a covenant, who's hold to moral, civil laws, dietary laws, ways of conduct. They had lost that. They fell away from that when they were scattered among the heathen. It's real simple, real easy to understand. All right. But he's going to convince you otherwise because he wants to be a part of this so bad. Well, I'm sorry, bro. The Most High, you know, he set he set the standard. He set basically everything is according to his will. And you cannot make yourself a part of something that you were never a part of. You cannot open up and stretch the covenant out to all people when the Lord made it between him and his own people. Well, that's what Christianity did. The Christianity put words in the Most High's mouth. They add to his word. And that's why the false prophet is going to be destroyed. And Vocab, he's going to be destroyed. All right. So, and I can keep going, even down to the circumcision part. All right. You read that account in Maccabees, the first. Let me go to it. Let's deal with that. You're at a point in time when you had Israelites that literally, under the decree of Antiochus Epiphanes, they actually sold foreskin back onto their rods and became uncircumcised. First Maccabees 1 and verse 11, it says, and in those days there went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. And they were even killing women who were caught circumcising their sons, and they were hanging the infants. All this is in history. But he's going to continue to ignore those facts. All right. So by the time the Roman Empire was happened, you still had Israelites living after that manner. They just wasn't getting circumcised. So then by the time the ministry opened up to the Israelite foreigners, you had men who thought that you would not be able to be reconciled unless you were circumcised after the manner of the law of Moses. And that's where you had the decision, the dissension come from, where they had to have the councils about it. And, all that came up because you had men who thought that they were better and looked down upon them because they were uncircumcised. You had hypocrites who, although they may have been circumcised in the flesh, but their heart was uncircumcised. They were being hypocrites. And a lot of them was doing it for the outward shoe. And Paul was calling them out on that. Galatians 6 and verse 12, it says, as many as desire to make a fair shoe in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest they should suffer persecution for the cross of Mashiach. For neither by themselves who are circumcised keep the law, They were being hypocrites. So that circumcision didn't really avail them, because there was still iniquity found in these people, even though they may have been Jews outwardly. All right. It says, but desire to have you circumcised, that they may glory in your flesh. You see that? So that was the circumcision, being hypocrites, acting holier than thou, rejecting their fellow Israelite brothers and sisters who was living after the manner of heathen at one point, but were being called out of that into the ministry. All right, to the believing of their souls, man, by faith. So that was what was going on. But we know, according to Romans 2, when you break a law, you're no different. There's Romans 2:25. It says, for circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, meaning if you offend in one, it's like you offend in all. Thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. Right? Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee? Who by the letter and circumcision doest transgress the law? Hypocrite. For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly. Just like these the controversy surrounding the fringe thing. You got groups, other one West groups that push the fringe thing so heavy, but they half-ass the law. You pushing the law heavy on others, and you yourself ain't doing all the law. Ain't even keeping their Passover right. So it was the same thing back then. All right, it says, for he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, and in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praises of is not of men, but of the Most High. So that's how you know this is only talking about Israelites. All right, and they were being accepted, whether they was circumcised or uncircumcised. Their spirits were being circumcised, and they were being cleaned up. They were baptized, coming into the faith. Okay, and they were living in these other lands, scattered amongst the heathen. So they were excluded from Israel. But YAHAWASHI, the blood of YAHAWASHI, made them nigh. He reconciled them and brought them back. So that's all this is going into. I don't know how many times we got to deal with this topic, but we do it for edification's sake. But this guy, he's gonna double back. He's gonna basically stand on his square as far as what he wants to believe, and he's gonna try to force that on others. All right. But if you fall by this dude, then the Lord pretty much does not want you. You're not of the elect. So anyway, I'm gonna end the lesson with that. Lord willing, just edify them, give all praise to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And to the next lesson, Shalom.